Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Welcome to the show where we interview the nation's leading real estate entrepreneurs. It's your host, Stephen Schmidt. If you're joining us for a second, third, or 100th time, welcome back. And if you're joining us for your first time, either way, you're in for a special treat. I've got Bud Evans in the studio today, and we're going to be talking about how Bud's helping vets and first responders to gain their freedom through real estate. He's got a highly decorated military background and a career in real estate, been investing for over 6 years. He also, I found out in our pre-show conversation, was a mayor at one point as well. So we're going to be hopping right into it, talking about faith, family, fitness, finance, and fun, and how that relates to real estate. Just remember, at Investor Fuel, we help real estate investors, service providers, and real estate entrepreneurs 2 to 5x their businesses to allow them to build the businesses they've always wanted, to allow them to live the lives they've always dreamed of. With that being said, Bud, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Super grateful for the time that we get to spend today and being able to just hop right in. Before we kind of get into some of these topics we discussed before the show, tell us just a little bit of background on you, how you got where you're at today, and what that journey's been like for you.
Yeah, I've had a pretty cool run. So 1987, I went into the active duty Air Force, got out in 90 after Graham Rudman made some budget cuts, was told sign up for 4 more years or go into the Guard. I took the Guard option. By 1993, I was a police officer at the ripe old age of 23 years old. 21 and 22, I had tried and failed miserably at opening a restaurant. So from 2023 up until 2005, for 12 and a half years, I was a police officer at Radnor Township, Pennsylvania. 2001, the towers fell. I had been deployed a few times. So by 2004, I started looking for it. In 2005, I was accepted back into what they call the AGR program, the Active Guard and Reserve program at Horsham Air Guard Station, where I basically did the next umpteen years serving the country. I started out as an enlisted troop, did that for about 15 years, and then, 19 years, then jumped over to the commission side, did that for about 16 and a half years. Finished as a major, was about to pin on E8 when somebody offered me lieutenant. I still think I was a better senior NCO than I ever was an officer. Anyway, so 2014, I moved from Limerick, Pennsylvania over to South Jersey because all of my medical stuff, I was doing that at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst here in Jersey. I love to help and do things to make the area that I move into better than it was when I got there. So I ran for local office. I cleared it first. I cleared it with the government, make sure I was good to go. And they said, hey, good luck. So I did. I ran for local office and I got elected. Next thing I know, I'm the mayor of Cinnaminson Township, which is great town here, just across the bridge from Philadelphia, for anybody who's not familiar with the area. And a year and a half into it, I get a phone call on a Friday night at 10 p.m. that said, hey, remember how we told you could be the mayor? I was like, yeah. They said, you can't. I was like, okay, so what do I have to do? Like, wait until the end of nope, now, resign. So a Saturday morning, I woke up and I sent an email at 5 a.m. Hey, I have to resign from my position.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
So then I had 40 to 50 hours of my life back. Here I was, August, I figured I'm going to jump into real estate. I had no idea what I was doing. Tried to do it, failed miserably. September, I signed up for a mentorship program called Fortune Builders, which was expensive as heck, but worth every penny that I paid for it, by the way. That was the end of September. October, I went through my immersion course. November, I found my first flip. January of 2019 is when my feet really started hitting the ground. January 2019, I had my first flip. My coach told me, okay, now you got your first flip, don't stop looking. By the end of that month, I had 2 more rental properties under construction, under rehab. Next thing I know, 2 years later, I got 30 flips, 21 rental properties, and 10 wholesales under my belt. Now here we are, 6 years later, I've got over 100 flips. I've got over 50 doors. Now I still only did 13 wholesales, but that is what it is. And that's how we got to where we are today. 2 things though. One thing, I got called about 3 years into it, and by a friend of mine who introduced me to Tariq El Moussa, and I was one of the first coaches that was hired by him to help him stand up his coaching program. Tariq is an HGTV personality who did Flip or Flop and the Flipping El Moussas and Flipping 101. So that was a great experience. And then now I'm working with a guy who is specifically military oriented, military to millionaire. His name is David Perret. Great dude. Love the guy. Love the program. I'm a member myself and I have been for about 4 years. But now I started my own coaching program and here we are.
What made you decide when you were going through that transition, what made you decide to really take real estate seriously and jump feet first all in that?
That's a great question. And to put it in perspective, I had saved my entire life. As a cop, I had about $120,000 after saving like $8,000 a year for the entire time that I was in there. It was absolutely ridiculous. But we went through the whole 2008 correction and all that stuff. So, and then in the military, I had the thrift savings program. I wound up with about $400,000 in that. And I was like, I saved all this time and I got about $500,000 in the bank overall. I'm like, my net worth is like a negative $100,000, I'm like, how did this happen? And when I started looking into real estate, in fact, it was a committee person that joined up and became a member of the committee was Al Segrist. And I was like, Al, what do you do for a living? And he's like, nothing. I'm like, what? He goes, well, I have four properties that I own. I was like, well, that's not enough to retire. He goes, well, it is when one of them's a mixed use 4 apartment and 1 commercial storefront, which is a barbershop. And then the other one is a quad. And I was like, okay. So I was like, all right. So now he went from, I've got 4 properties to, he's got 12 doors and they're all paid off. You know what I mean? So he's making $12,000 a month roughly after he pays everything off. So I was like, I need to do that because I realized my thrift savings plan and my pension was not going to be enough to survive on.
Yeah. I think that's most people, they do all the right things. And that's exactly what it sounds like your story is. You're doing the right stuff. You're saving, you're being disciplined, all of that stuff. And then you wake up and you're still like, I don't really actually have as much as I thought I did and no cash flow from it. I'm assuming, right? Right.
And that's kind of the funny part. It's not that I was unhappy with what I had. It's that a couple of things happened. And one of them was Ron Paluzzo, God rest his soul. Ron retired and was living the dream. And then he retired. He moved down to Florida. He had his guard pension. He has police pension. And then within 3 years, Ron had a massive stroke and died. So here I am sitting there going, well, all right, it's not about what I have. It's about how long I'm going to hang around and be able to share my time. It was more about time and financial freedom than it was anything else.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency. It's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
I wanted to spend more time with my wife. My son's 33, so and I probably see him once a week now. He lives down the street, but I get to go to Flyers games with him and Eagles games, and we get catch a baseball game once in a while, or we'll just go over there and we'll play video games or just watch a movie, which is a blast. But it all came down to, I want to sit around with the people that I love and do the things that I love. And I'd rather drive a used Volkswagen and live in a townhouse than live in a mansion and drive a Bugatti and, be unhappy as hell. So here I am, living the way I want to live, as opposed to retire, realize it's not enough. So find another job, and then the golden years and work until you die. That was not the plan. So at 51, I was able to retire and never go back to work again.
Because ultimately, that's what I think a lot of us do this for, is the actual time freedom. It's not even time. Time freedom is so cliche. It's really the freedom of choice to do it, which again comes down to time, but it's the freedom to actually live life on your own terms.
Yeah.
Now, within that, you talked about like the '08 crash, for example, and I know you weren't feet first in it at that point. But why do you think so many people fail at real estate? Do you think it's a lack of discipline sticking to a plan, or what are some of the pitfalls, mistakes that you think are avoidable that a lot of people tend to find themselves in, which is then when the negative Nancy's come out and say, well, you shouldn't do real estate because that's a horrible thing. You're going to have so much debt. And then, what are some of those things that are avoidable problems, and how do people avoid those problems getting started?
If you told me that, hey, bud, you'd be worth over 10 million net worth and you'd have $5 million in debt and you'd laugh about it, if you'd told me that when I was retiring, I'd have been like, get out of here, dude. That's not the way to live. Well, first off, it's not debt, it's leverage. That's number one. I'm leveraging the value of my properties and having my tenants pay down my mortgage. And we're snowballing. So we actually take the majority of our rents and we pay our debt down. So our net worth is, on a huge uphill climb. But why do people fail? A couple of different reasons. Number one, they have no idea what they're doing and they're jumping in with both feet. And when you don't know how to swim and you jump into the deep end, sometimes you drown. What I do is, when I teach my students, they can count on one thing. I'm brutally honest. I will tell you, this is how I screwed that up. So don't do that. And this is the system that came about because I did that, So that's one aspect of it. The other thing, I've lost friends and family over this whole process, over my development. So you have a lot of people that get involved in this and they hear the naysayers and they pause or they stumble because of the naysayers. And by the time they realize that, they were right in the first place, it's already too late. And now you're, 6 months past your deadline and your finances, your finance charges are through the roof. And now maybe your contractor was horrible or whatever it might be. When you do something like this, you can't, pardon the term, but you can't half-ass it. You've got to be all in or don't get in at all. And there are way too many people who kick the tires and think that just because, hey, I'm talking to Bud or hey, I'm talking to Tarek, I'm going to make $1 million. That's not how this works. I can give you all the systems in the world, but unless you hustle and grind, it's not going to work. It's not going to work at all. It's not a magic pill.
The one big piece I took out of that is you don't want to half-ass it, you want to full-ass it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, right.
I love it. So now how does this correlate to your overall mission? Because with your 5 F's, your faith, your family, your fitness, your finance and fun, because I think you hear this a lot and it's almost even understressed in the success realm, let's call it, of personal development being one of the most important things you can do to actually push the needle forward in your finances and really in every area of your life. So How do people go about navigating that, and how does that relate to your overall mission in achieving those things?
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding like I'm, promoting myself, I'm not. First, find a mentor, find someone who's been there and done that. And Tony Robbins said, hey, if you find somebody who's really successful and do what they do, the odds are you'll be successful too. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. But find that, do that. Second is read everything you can get your hands on. The next thing is, if I do the things that I wish I would have done, in order to be where I am now. If I would have done this when I was in my 20s, and I would have house hacked, and I would have used the benefits that I was eligible to use as a military person, or borrowed against my deferred compensation plan, my 457B plan, and bought my first rental property back in the day. At 48, I would not have been going, hey man, I just managed a $16 million budget and I have no idea how money really works.
Mm.
How I can maneuver things in LLCs and trusts, and why you do this, and why you use a self-directed IRA versus this, or, that's the kind of stuff that people need to be able to navigate through. And that's the purpose of the mentor, to make sure that they're aware of that. Now, I am not a legal, or obviously I'm not a CPA. Did take accounting, and I do have a finance degree, but it is what it is, right? I'm not certified in anything. So please, by all means, check with I hate saying this.
Check with a licensed professional.
Check with a licensed professional. But when it comes down to it, make sure they know what they're talking about, because if you go into a financial planner, and I said this to my son, my son said, hey dad, I'm going to use this financial planner. I said, do me a favor, son. He said, what? I said, what does that financial planner drive? And he goes, an Aston Martin. I said, and what does clients drive? And he's like, a Honda Pilot. And I went, think about that for a second. If the financial professional was driving a Honda Pilot and his clients were driving the Aston Martin, I'd be like, by all means, son, invest with that man.
Mm.
But that's not how it is, man.
Out of curiosity, because I think there's a really great point that you make there, but for maybe even myself, because sometimes I'm a little bit slow on the uptick, why would you rather invest your money with somebody that the people that are investing with them are driving the nicer cars versus them? Just for our listeners' sake.
Here's the thing. When you're talking to financial professionals, they are getting a point for every trade they make. And I'm just throwing around some basic numbers here. So some are different, maybe it's 1.25, maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 0.5%, it doesn't matter. For every trade they make, or every deposit that you make into your bank account, every time they invest, they get a percentage of that. Whether you win or lose, they're getting a percentage of your money. If you lose, they don't take a hit, you do. And if they win, good. I mean, the spoils come to you, but they've already made their money, and that's the majority of how that's how the majority of them work. There's a fee for you to do business. It doesn't matter how much you make.
Yeah. So ultimately you want to find the guy whose clients drive Ferraris and he drives a Beamer, right?
Exactly.
That way, he still doesn't suck too, right?
Exactly. Right. Look, if he's driving, if he's driving a fancy car and then he sets up his clients to drive the fancy car, like I've got a buddy of mine who, he's got a pretty substantial net worth, and he doesn't want to drive a fancy car. And but the guy who's hooking him up, and he's got him invested in dividends that pay him. And there's not a lot of transactions going on within his account, in his portfolio. To me, that's substantial, because he's got assets that are paying him, and he doesn't work. He fishes. I'm not kidding you. The dude fishes like probably 6 to 7 hours a day. God bless him. He's out on the lake, or he flies down to Florida or whatever it might be. But his professional is like, hey man, I'm going to make this so that you're making that $15,000 to $20,000 a month in net cash flow just from your dividend stocks. And the rest of it, we're going to put in for long-term, and we're going to make sure that your kids and your kids' kids are taken care of. That's my guy. That's my guy. Not the guy who's like, hey man, we're going to set you up for retirement when you're 65. Okay, but what happens when I'm 55? What happens when I'm 50? You know,
Yeah.
what about if something happens to my wife and we're 52? Where, you
Yeah.
know, where's that?
100%. Yeah. You want somebody that's going to actually look at the entire scope, not just your Roth, but also your self-directed, your
Yeah.
IUL, your all of the different financial aspects that are actually going to set your family up for generational wealth, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, you just said a
So,
magic word to me, man. That when we start talking about cash value life insurance policies, you know, I teach my students. They're like, "Oh man, I want to get a cash value life insurance policy." I'm like, "Why?" They're like, "Well, you know, because that's what rich people do." I'm like, "Are you rich yet?" No. I'm like, "Well, let's talk about velocity banking. Let's talk about rental properties. Let's talk about dividend stocks. Let's talk about index funds." You know,
right,
I'm not allowed to tell you to buy index funds and dividend stocks, but that's what I have. You
right.
know,
Yeah,
um,
it's about if you're gonna get involved in eating some pudding, just make sure the flavor's good, right?
yeah,
For lack
right.
of a better analogy.
Yeah,
Oh man.
exactly.
So when you got started, but what, because you mentioned education, read everything you can. What would you say were the most influential books, like maybe just top two for you, that stood out the most when you were first getting started? And what have you transitioned to reading now?
Yeah, great. First and foremost, everybody loves the Purple Bible, right? Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. You know,
I've never
that
heard it called that before.
I
That's a
mean,
great term.
right? But it is what it
Purple
is. I mean,
Bible.
I woke up literally, woke up figuratively and literally at the same time. You know, mentally, and went, "Wow, is that the thing? Like, buy assets so that your assets pay your bills." Why have I never heard that before? Well, because I grew up in a middle class trades house, you know, where your troubles were drowned by alcohol. You know, it was like, hey, we're going to go out on Friday nights and make sure that we're drunk until Sunday so that on Monday we're capable of going back to work so that we can rinse, cycle, repeat for 65 years. And then
Right.
hopefully we don't die before we buy the condo in Wildwood, New Jersey. You know,
Right.
that's it, man. That's the Irish middle class tradesman background. Um,
Sure. Hopefully our liver keeps up long enough till retirement.
Right? Yeah, man. So that's the first one. That's how money really works. That'll give you a real good idea. It's not a blueprint, it's just an idea. And then the thing that another thing that changed my mindset was Ferris's The 4 Hour Work Week, right? Tim Ferriss wrote that book, and a lot of the stuff in it is it's dated. So like, you know, but I use VAs, you know,
Sure.
and I will tell, no kidding. I own a property management company, several portfolios. We got and then not only my consulting company, but I also have a hair salon, and my wife runs the hair salon, which is a joke. And I'll get to that in a second because that was something that hit me in the back of the head. But the 4 Hour Work Week, I will tell my VA, hey, I want to answer this
You
guy.
just you said hit you in the back of the head and it's a hair salon. I'm like, is it shaved back there?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
What
right.
happened?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm due. If I can pinch it, it's too long. Right.
A high and tight,
Um,
right?
yeah, you can take the man out of the military, but you can't take the military out of the man.
Love
Um,
it.
Right. But I told my assistant the other day for the property management company, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And I had word vomit. And she goes, okay, I will tell him. And I said, don't tell him the way I tell him. Tell him the way you tell him.
Yeah,
Because she has a better disposition than I do, where I am very short and
sure.
direct because that's my background, where she will say, hello, sir, you know, hello, name. I hope you're having a great day. I just wanted to bring this to your attention, and this is what's going on, and this is how we're looking to handle it. What would you believe, you know, what would you think would be that blah, 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 blah. And it's very polite and, you know, very it lacks fire, you
Sure.
know.
Sure. Whereas
Um,
you're like, we need this done now. Send.
yeah, it's one line. Hey, dude, I told you to do this. You didn't do it. Let's do it. If you don't, we're done. You know, that's probably not the best thing to say to a client, you know.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
she'll be, hey, sir, I just wanted to remind you that we have this outstanding bill and this is this. And in order to rectify this, we need to do this. And, you know, and it's a paragraph long and it's to the point, but it's polite.
Right. So when did you, within your real estate investing career now, when did that transition hit to where you really started focusing on helping other veterans, first responders to get started with doing the same things that you're into?
Started at work. So I got so into it so fast that I had, you know, I had a moment. It was an epiphany that where I was sitting outside between our SCIF, which is a sensitive compartmented information facility, which is where all the TS stuff happened, that stuff. And then the building where my office was, and I'm sitting in this courtyard in the sun, and I must have had 1,000-yard stare because a guy, Ben, walks up to me. He was a captain, and he's like, "Hey, bud, what's wrong?" And I went, "What?" And he went, "What's wrong?" I said, "Ben, I made more money yesterday in one day than I will make all year as a major." And he went, "Okay." And that's when I made the decision to leave. When I got the call from Tarek, I started to want to teach others how I did what I did. And I found that I gravitated towards it. It resonated with me. Watching people become successful was not as exciting as me becoming successful. It was more exciting helping someone else become successful. And then looking at the civilian who maybe worked as a CEO or a CFO, or maybe they have, 2 college degrees and a master's and they're doing this high level stuff, versus the airman or the E4 or the Marine who is struggling to make ends meet. They're paying rent for an apartment that is crushing them. And, they're not eating at the dining facility. They're doing their own shopping. They're eating ramen, daily. I want that person to be able to understand that, hey man, you can use your VA loan and buy that triplex over there, and then use the income from those 2 apartments that you're not living in as your income, showing that you can afford that property. And then, oh, by the way, you can rent those 2 units out and have someone, have 2 people live in it. They're paying your mortgage. And oh, by the way, when you PCS out of here, now you can rent out, or even after a year, you can rinse, cycle, repeat. I had one of my students do this. He bought a quad, moved into one of the units, fixed up the other 3 units, had people move in. 1 year later, he went out and he bought an FHA. He got an FHA loan for another quad, moved in, fixed it up. His net worth went from negative to $800,000. Just like that, just by using the burst strategy on 2 different 4 units. And it worked. And to me, that was the calling. You know what I mean? That was, hey man, what you just did for that dude and what you can do for other guys. I got this guy, Edgar, who's part of the mentorship program that I'm in now, the Military to Millionaire, who's in my squad, and having that conversation. He's got 1 stripe, dude. He just bought a house with like 5 bedrooms, and he's renting out the rooms to his guys, and he's going to be able to not only afford that house, but he's going to make money doing it. So he just increased his net worth. He will increase his net worth. He will increase his income. And when I saw him move in and he picked up the keys, like, dude, chalk one up for the good guys. That's a win. That's why I do it.
Why do you care?
Oh man. I've lost so many friends. Honestly, I've lost 4 guys downrange. I lost 6 guys at home to suicide. And I back in November of 22, I had a breakdown myself and overdosed on pills. So, and now keeping in mind that I was a millionaire, right? But I wasn't doing the things that I'm doing now to combat the depression and the anxiety and the PTSD. Being open and telling people this is what's going to happen, or this is what you're going to be able to do, or this is, and having those open discussions is a complete, and you and I, you made a statement like, as a man, we hold things in, right? And being able to have those discussions. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, I want people to understand that, that they can do it. Not only can, not just about real estate, not only, but have the conversations with other people, understanding that you're not alone. You can go through this, you'll get through it. This too shall pass.
Man, that got deep for a second there.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, man, deep is deep conversations, deep connection. That's what I'm all about. And so let me ask you another maybe vulnerable question. I didn't have any intentions of moving towards this, but when you came out of that in 2022, and we're moving forward from that, what changed with you? Because obviously that was a very pivotal moment for you.
Yeah.
And so what really changed with your mindset and your actions, your habits at that point to realize, you know what, that's not worth it, and I've got to be doing something bigger?
Yeah, that's where I came up with the 5 Fs. I started to annotate everything. I started to establish goals. This is the Michael Hyatt full focus planner. I use this thing religiously. These are my, I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can't really see it.
Too much glare,
We,
yeah.
yeah, weekly previews. So I have my annual goals, my quarterly goals, my weekly previews. I do my weekly big three, and then every day I try to hit those numbers. But it's not about that. It's about this. Find something that gives you mental clarity and peace. So right now I got back into, I got so into the money aspect of the real estate that I had forgotten what the purpose was. And this is the thing that hit me in the back of the head. My wife was a hairstylist, and we had planned on her, riding off into the sunset. I was going to retire 2 years later. She was going to retire, and we were going to ride off into the sunset. Her boss found out that she had cancer in July and died in August. And my wife had employees that were working in the salon. So the LLC died with D, and then Stephanie started a new LLC and took over everything. So it closed on Saturday as Sheer Know-How by D and opened on Tuesday as Sheer Know-How. And now she works more than she used to work. And the goal was to, hey, we're going to hang out more. We're going to do all this stuff. And now it's just me and my dog in my office,
Oh,
So in order to combat the, that income creep and the stress that comes along with trying to chase the dollar, I stopped doing that. In all honesty, for the property management company, I had a guy who come across and he's like, hey man, I've got 35 doors. I want to do this. I want to do that. After a conversation, I found out he wanted to evict more than half of his tenants because they weren't at market rent, even though he had all of his properties paid off. And this is where the change in mindset comes into play. Old Bud would have said, oh yeah, man, we can do that. We can do, I want to get that, money per door, that 8% per door. And I went, yeah, dude, I'm not your guy. Right? Like if you're not going to uphold to the standards, you're not a quality individual. I don't want to deal with you. So I started pushing those kind of people away, started hanging out with people who actually had character. And then I started doing things like I pick up my guitar again. I got my Breed Love in the corner. I just came back this weekend from a sailing lesson. So I want to buy a sailboat, by the end of 2026 is one of my 8 goals for this year. In fairness, I went out on the water this weekend and you know what I thought about? Sailing. That's it, right? That's all I had. So finding that focus, finding that, that mental acuity and the meditation, the meditative practice of basically just finding something that brings you peace. That's it. So I exercise every day. And then I plan my next sailing trip and I play guitar for about 30 minutes a day and I walk my dog.
And at the next function, you're going to find me and Bud over there. He's going to be playing chicken fried with 90% accuracy, which is what he said on his,
Dude, that is
on
no
his
kidding.
bio.
That
And
is
I'll be
a
there saying a
goal.
little bit chicken fried.
That is a goal. That is honestly a goal. Yeah. I got to tune my guitar down a half a fret and then, yeah, I'm in, man. I'm just starting to finger picking again.
Well, I'll bring the Luke Combs voice, not even close, but I'll bring the voice. You bring the guitar, and we'll make some music. Oh man, this is one of the longest shows I've actually recorded because this conversation is just so rich, and I know people are going to get a ton of value from it. Let me ask you one last question.
Yeah,
if you had to go back to the beginning and take all of the lessons, experiences, wins, losses, failures, all of it, and you had to start it all over back in the beginning with all that experience, what would you do different and what would you do the same?
Are we talking about 18-year-old Bud or 23-year-old Bud?
I mean, I'll let you take that wherever you want to go. I
Yeah.
usually relate it to real estate, but you answer that however it speaks to you.
Yeah. So 18-year-old Bud was an idiot. I will say that I was as immature as they come. The military kind of straightened me out. I was the guy that got slapped, in school because I wasn't paying attention because that's what school is. 23-year-old Bud, after my first stint in the military, failing miserably in the restaurant business, jumping into the police department. My first real taste of entrepreneurism was a disaster. My second opportunity was the day that, I'll throw the name out, John Berkeyheiser, who was a mentor to me back in the police department days, had a 6-unit. No, it was a six unit. Yeah, 6-unit in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, and offered it to me for like $40,000. And I was like, and I said, no, man, I can't afford that. If 56-year-old Bud goes back to 23-year-old Bud, I'm slapping myself. Pop, what do you mean you can't afford that? You've got the money, you've got the time, you've got the capability, just do it. So I'll go back to, if I had to do it all again, I would have listened more to John, and I would have done that and followed that entrepreneurial spirit, because dude, by the time he left the department and went back down to, he was from Virginia. He left the department. I think he was in 12 years, something like that. And he left for Virginia with a bunch of rental properties. I wish I'd have been able to do that. But I'll take this as second best.
Yeah, you bet. Well, it doesn't sound like you've created a bad life for yourself.
No, been all over the world. There's a whole thing about that. So.
Yeah. Well, we might have to have you back for a part 2 at some point. This is just so good and so rich. But, for anybody that wants to learn more about you or what you're working on, where should they go for that?
Yeah. So youtube.com @enlisted2entrepreneur. That's enlisted, the number 2 entrepreneur, or just go to budevans.com. I love to talk to people. So it's not a sales pitch. If you have a question about real estate or anything, just go to budevans.com and book a strategy session. It's 30 minutes. It's free. Ask me a question. I'll give you an answer. If you don't like it, cool. If you want me to help you out then we'll talk. But
I love it. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's show. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks again for being here, Bud.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.